confusion between turns around a point and its own pylons.
It's in pylons where you put the wings on there.
Yeah. You work it.
Object.
You work it in there.
So the objective, or what on turns around a point, the goal is, and the goal on turns around a point is to maintain a precise distance from that point on the ground. So if this is your point, exactly the same distance all over the point. Doesn't matter what the bank angle is. However, on its own pylons, depending on the wind, you have a pivotal altitude, which means that wingtip is always the line of sight between the pilot's eye, as you look, assume you're doing left, the line of sight between the pilot's eye through the wingtip appears to be like the airplane is pivoting around that pylon. So if you have wind, it's not going to be the same distance. It may be very close here, and then here get really far. But that pivotal altitude, whatever that line of sight, that's where you don't want to get confused between its own pylon and turns around a point. And I believe you mentioned twice wingtip. Okay, first of all, you mentioned wingtip on the house. And second, you mentioned wingtip on the house. We mean second, twice. Initially, you mentioned it after you referred to the lesson plan. And then again, you mention it shallow the bank, more wind, shallow the bank, somewhere in the shallow the bank side. I kind of mixed and matched the question and kind of giving you some pointers. So take a minute. Do I make sense? Okay. Have a seat. Self-critique. I think due to the extent of time, I'm kind of a little bit, again, time management. I'm adjusting the lesson. Self-critique. Talk to me. What you got in your mind? I'm sure you have some points where you kind of regret saying and stuff and this one before I, start. So let's go to self-critique and go from there. Let's see. What do we have here? I wonder what it would say here. Fire instructor.
Can I look through the oral and see what I missed out, or it's just self?
Oh no, self-critique.
Yeah.
I want to see what it is. Okay, hold on. Assessment of critique. Purpose of the assessment, general characteristics, effective assessment, traditional, authentic, oral assessment, characteristics, effective questions, type of questions to avoid. Instructor, student critique, student lead critique, small group critique, individual student critique for another student, self-critique, written critique. Okay, so self-critique, it's in your book. What's your self-critique?
My self-critique is definitely, I really mixed up econ balance with international. So yeah, very crucial. Feel like something with the rut of using the point, then let's see. Get the wind and the pattern distance.
Wind and gliding distance?
Yeah, determine where the wind is.
Yeah, you mentioned gliding distance. Yeah, you want to find yeah, you mentioned.
Yeah, you mentioned
you
it.
want to have an emergency lighting sign because you mentioned it.
In the end, they mentioned you want to have an emergency vehicle.
It's actually in the POH.
Actually, we did
In
it in
the
common area.
yes.
It didn't come in there.
It's in the PTS, like find an emergency landing center.
When you're reading through the PPS,
Yeah.
you mentioned to yourself that you must make sure you put the sideways in line in the time distance.
Okay. So I mentioned the left, the Y is covered, and high.
Somehow it's funny to me.
Fiber.
No, you see the right number, caution is drinks you're about to enjoy is extremely hot. Why?
Warning, somebody burned himself or something?
No, it's ridiculous. Like I didn't, when I hold the cup, I didn't know it's hot.
I think it's liability insurance, you know.
Some stupid lady who sued McDonald's in the nineties.
So what
Protection.
about I wanted to caution this thing because it's extremely cold? What if I drink this kind of very free?
Very great. And you know what? You need to sue, and then they'll do it.
Try to sue and then they'll fix that.
Yeah. In like
That's a
10
good
years,
point.
it's gonna be changed, yeah. I can't recall.
There we go, okay. Let's talk about instructor critique. Positive critique, 1214, 1229, right on the money, so give yourself an A. Time management.
29.
15 minutes
Presentation started at 1214, ended at 1229.
Okay.
15 minutes on the clock. Equal distance, same altitude. Okay. That's the goal. Plus or minus 100 feet, plus or minus 10 knots, and maintain an equal distance. Why? It makes you a better pilot, improves coordination, division of attention, loved it. Give yourself an A. Excellent. How? Talked about the maneuver. Free maneuver check. Beautiful. 105. I don't know where you pick 105. I picked up 102. What did you put?
102.
Yeah, put 172 SP. Yeah, I picked up 102 for the maneuvering.
Yeah.
That's the same.
You can
right?
pick. You can pick below.
Below 105.
Below maneuvering. It's
Below
okay.
maneuvering.
I like 100.
Okay.
Easy number.
I was just gonna say, well, what is maneuvering speed? Okay, 105.
But it's right there. I opened the picture.
105 indicated. That's carbon.
105. I don't think I was. So, you know, try even 100. Less. If you can do less, you don't have to be right at the meter. Right? No big deal. Come in on the downwind side. Very good. You kept on referring to your lesson plan. So you had your lesson plan open and you looked at it and you followed your lesson plan, which is very good. And that is why we have lesson plans. So we don't make stuff up. We go with the guidelines. You did not mention 4 points. When I teach turns around a point, I pick an obstacle, house, whatever point, and I pick 4 points equal distance to that. And I make sure, my student flies over those 4 points.
Make sure because you create a ring.
Then you're basically guaranteeing
That you're gonna do it.
that you're gonna do it.
But I've never heard of that. It's
Yeah.
so interesting.
Yeah.
But isn't it? the
That's
way-
what I do, but you don't have to. When you
I
get
did
people
my
that,
private check, right? That's what I did. On the private check, I didn't tell you, yeah. There's a tower, there's a road, and it's a pick a distance. Okay, that's a distance, that's another thing, yes. Pick something else, that's okay, pick something else, that, let's pick something else, that, okay. Fly me around.
just fly over it.
You'll keep a guarantee, keep a nice.
You're
tight ring.
guaranteed. I mean, it may not look perfect.
But you guarantee you're going around that point. Pick a distance.
This is your point, and you pick 4 points here. It may look like that. If you're crazy. But hey, I tried. The wind drifted me, whatever. But hopefully you'll be something like that. But it doesn't look as bad
Sure.
as I've seen people do this. They start downwind, and they get blown out here, and then try to go, and it's a nightmare. I've seen that happen a lot with the wind. By the time they realize, they're like, what am I doing? Very common to get blown with the wind and not actually turn the opposite direction, go this way and keep that distance. And here when they start to turn early, instead of actually turning this way into the wind. And that's the point I demonstrated before. On that point where you're going into the wind, you may have to turn to the opposite direction to get, that crab. Did you mention the word crab? Mention that.
Where else are you
Back
at?
into the wind.
Where else are you
Crab
at?
into the wind.
Always use shallow bank and crab. That's the best term that they want. Remember we were talking about that?
Crab into the wind. I did put it here in my notes. Crab into the wind. So you don't have to use 4 points, but it's very helpful initially for a student.
On the no practice area, usually that's a good time for that. That's what it is. It's just the words.
I asked you if we can do right or only left, and you said yes, we can do right. Plans the maneuver so as to enter left or right at 600 to 1,000 API. Give yourself an 8. You know the maneuver. Again, wingtip on the house. We talked about it a few times. Don't say it. We're not maintaining wingtip on the house. We're maintaining a precise distance from that house. And a circular. Imagine a bicycle of
And this box.
spokes and then
Right.
your right over tire, whatever. That's the goal. That's the goal of the maneuver. 8's on pylons, that's who cares? It's a pivotal altitude, it's a line of sight, pilot side through the wingtip, touching the pylon, it's pivoting. That's a different maneuver. Don't get confused. Did not mention crab, that's what I put. Did not mention crab. Mention crab, especially when you're going into the wind. You may have to crab into the wind and turn opposite direction to maintain the drift. Shallow the bank, the more the wind, the shallow the bank. Not necessarily true, because if the wind is blowing you, again, over here, into the point, you can't just shallow the bank and it's enough. You may have to bank to the opposite direction to maintain the drift. So it's not necessarily true, shallow the bank. Minimum 1 and 2 turns. Where did you get?
Got that from the oral,
Oral exam guide? What does it say? Any reference to that? College handbook or?
handbook, makes a complete term.
Okay. Always want to put, and I'm actually paraphrasing it. Always want to put the wingtip on the reference point. I don't think you were prepared for that.
Yeah.
I think you kind of made stuff up. Don't do it on your check ride. Make sure it turns around a point or it turns around a point. 8's on pylon or 8's on
So
pylon.
you can pick anything. Whatever you want, right there, then after that. So,
You'll have it.
I'll
You'll
do
have
everything like,
Just, that's what we're like a simple practice points for each lesson. But remember, you'll have to, so at least that way you'll know how to, you don't keep reading it off, but you'll know it.
Pre-flight lesson on a maneuver to be performed in flight. Examiner, inspector, not examiner, must select at least one maneuver task from areas of operation. Ask the applicant to present a pre-flight lesson on selected maneuver, as the lesson will be taught to the student. Stating the purpose, giving an accurate comprehensive. So he may select any of those, and turns around and points maybe one of them. I doubt it, but they like they start to say ability to speak for But you said do it. Okay, so wingtip on Radius, how far? Where is the definition of how far you need to be from the point? Or is there any definition? You can be 3 miles away as long as you're maintaining a radius.
Yeah.
Not necessarily have to be a certain distance.
Right. Okay. I mean,
Go
yeah,
for it.
I mean, that's correct, because I didn't see anything, I didn't see any event while I was there.
That's why people ask them about the radius. So as much as the wind is allowed.
Yeah, that's.
I don't think there's anything that says half a mile, 3/4 of a mile, whatever. As a usual guideline, I like to stay around, 3 to 5,000 feet, like 3/4 feet. It works good. Too close is hard to correct. Too far may take forever. 3/4 of a mile is just about, within 5-10 minutes you're done with the movie. Yeah, exactly.
His 4 points, man, his 4 points have been like that. Lighthouse.
Oh, yes, sir. Turns around a point, okay. Montauk is going to be my first point. I'm heading to Westerly, Connecticut. My westerly point is Morristown Airport, New Jersey. Oh, you see that big crater, the boat over there about 35 miles? Yeah, that big red one with the oil tank in it. They're right there. That's going to be my southern tip.
At 100 knots.
Excuse me, sir. I mean, so what? You want to turn around a point? I'm sorry, sir. This is an hour and a half. I'm okay, so fine. I'm done with the check ride. Where's my ticket?
No, but I'm thinking about it.
All right.
20 nautical miles, you said, right? So that's 20 squared, which is 400, times 3.14. That's 800 nautical miles. Yes, I can do it.
So we're off.
No, seriously,
20,
you got
20 miles?
20 nautical miles radius is 800 nautical miles scan around. You can't do it.
No.
What?
Unless no.
Imagine trying to fly
No,
around
no,
the trolley.
no, I'm wrong.
Look at simple.
No, it's pi d, right? Instead of pi r squared, it's pi d. Right?
You're flying 20 miles an hour.
Pi d, so it's 20.
If this is the point, and here around is 1,000 feet, just measure here. How long is that?
It's a circle. It's a diameter of a circle. That's what you're finding. 17 or
I mean, just look at the proportion. Just look at the proportion. If this is 1,000, this is about 1,700, 3,400, 7,000. So 20 miles,
Yeah.
here is 20, so the same proportion, this will be about, let's say about 34.
No, I'm sorry.
34 plus 34, 34, 34, 68, 68 plus 68, 156? No, 136?
I'm 36. Sorry.
How did you get to 800?
No, because it's squared. I think it was pi r
But
squared.
that's going to take an hour and a half. It's exactly the check ride. You'll be done with the check ride. Which is what I said, an hour and a half, right? Pretty precise, I said Morristown 20 miles this way, Westerly this way, whatever.
You get back, everyone's like, how'd it go? Good, I just did one turn
I
around.
did one turn around a point, I was done with the check ride. You got no lower than 500 feet AGL. Where did you pick that up?
I saw that in the, I'm not 100% sure, but I think I saw that in the, agenda.
So that's what you looked up and then said,
I'll tell you what this said. I think it's 800.
Plan the maneuver so as to enter left or right at 600 to 8,000 AGL, the appropriate distance from the reference point. So I don't know what they mean by appropriate, but appropriate will probably what you pick. If you pick 3/4 of a mile, 3/4 of a mile. But do you have the airplane flying handbook?
Yeah, I have it in here.
Beautiful. What you got there? This is it.
I'm going to find it.
here. Open on the road, elementary 845, Western. Wind, shallow bank, steep bank. Nothing says 500 feet. 6, 7, and yellow. Nothing says 500 AGL, but this is a very good book. Whatever he pulled right now, that's where you want to go back.
Listen, there's all the S terms over here.
Just skip a page. 6, 7. Six, 7, 6, 8. Depends on the point. It's kind of a disadvantage. Maybe the page is not. You're supposed to go to 6, 9 maybe. Airplane flying handbook.
There's one over there.
See if you have a regular paper one.
Airplane flying handbook.
Beautiful. Pull it out. Full turns around a point.
Page 6. Around the point.
Okay, keep going.
And of course, S turns across the road.
Turns around a point, the airplane is pointed 2 or more complete circle. You're right, 2 or more. Distance from permanent ground, uniform radius, and first one using a maximum bank 45. Fire principle drift correction is one S turns are also for their maneuver. So S turns and turns on point very simple. When the existence, rely correction, closer up to the direct downwind heading. Ground speed is greater. Shallow the bank, slow rate of turn. Then through the maneuver, bank rate. Point selected, turns around a point. Turns around a point, the airplane should want a downwind heading. Significant. 45-degree max. Common airs. That's it. Nothing 500 AGL.
Probably, maybe, see the beginning of the chapter.
Okay, find the reference, show me. That's your homework.
That's what you were thinking, because remember he looked it up?
Objects on the ground should appear in their proportion and size. The altitude should be low enough to render any gain or loss apparent to the student, but in no case lower than 500 feet above the highest obstruction. Back to the Airman Information Manual, remember?
He looked it up for a famous
Sparsely
hour.
populated. I told you
Different types.
no less than 500 feet from any vessels, obstacles, houses, persons. That's the same thing.
And
But it's not 500 AGL.
Above
500 feet.
Above
horizontal
obstacle.
also.
no,
No.
just above the obstacle.
Right. Can we read it again?
The altitude should be low enough to render any gain or loss apparent to the student, but in no case lower than 500 feet above the obstruction.
Over other than congested areas, an altitude of 500 feet above the surface, except over open water sparsely populated area. In those cases, the aircraft may not be operated closer than 500 feet to any person, vessel, vehicle, or structure.
That means you can do it around an oil tanker at 500 feet, no less.
Somehow, they're all on the same service. Sprint, AT&T, Verizon, this guy and this guy, they talk to each other. I guess it's the same network. And they're very...
This is ASA, right?
This is,
No, this is FAA book.
That's ASA.
But this is also United States Private Transportation, Federal Aviation Regulation. The fact that ASA prints that, doesn't matter, it's still an FAA book.
ASA does a good job with that. Like here, or them
No,
guys.
but look.
Yes.
It's right there on the board. What is it? Plus or minus how much? 100 feet. You can't go below 500. It has to be 600.
Yeah, there you go, 600, yeah. Plus or minus
to
that.
100.
Right there, 600 AGL 2000. I usually do 800 with those. If it's a slower airplane, you probably go get away with 700, 600. It's a faster airplane. Like, Seneca, Saratoga, Bonanza, get up to 1,000. Okay, 500 AGL talked about that. Practical test standards. Why did you put the practical test standards completion standards and common errors for flight instructors instead of private. Very confusing.
Ouch.
Yeah, that's right.
If
That was
he
my question,
doesn't-
yeah.
If he doesn't say, I'm an instructor applicant, teach me turns around a point, teach me how to teach, which is what I'm doing right now, I'm teaching you how to teach. But I'm not teaching you how to teach an instructor, what I'm teaching you is how to teach a primary student, which is private. So I would like to see the completion standards, unless the inspector states it, but private. Completion standards, private. Common error.
You know what happened is he was going out of CPS when he was writing it, that's why. We were doing the flight
I think he was holding a yellow book instead of this.
the CFI.
If you would have held the private PPS, this would have been much easier, less common errors and less exhibiting instructional knowledge. Too much for a private. I mean, the private student does not need to exhibit any instructional knowledge. The private guy needs to just like, okay,
Right.
let's just do the movie. Common errors also, CFI. I don't know why you got so complicated with it. Very confusing. Summarize a circle wing on the reference point. That's like the fourth time you mentioned the wing on the wingtip on the reference point. Again, if there's a lot of wind, you're going to actually crab in the opposite direction and the wingtip is going to be up in the sky. Because you're maintaining, if you have a lot of wind and it's pushing you this way, you're crabbing into the wind to maintain your precise ground shaft. So you're going, to then push it, so you got to crab into the wind. You know, I'm kind of happy you did this one. Because it kind of gave me some good
So that's the critique.
Did you take notes?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, worst case, you'll watch the tape.
Yeah, no, I took all the
You'll
notes.
get everything from the tape.
Also took the notes, but I had a question.
Uh-huh.
When would you, when would you touch the airspeed indicator to do calibration? Like it says the calibrated airspeed, indicated airspeed, when would you?
Never.
Never.
The only time I teach my students to do the airspeed thing is when the airspeed indicator has a true airspeed window. And then you have the airspeed indicator, and over here you have a little window for true airspeed. Over here you have another window of Celsius and
Pressure.
altitude,
Pressure altitude.
pressure altitude. So you over here you have a knob, and you're at 12,000 feet. And you want to know your true airspeed. You're indicating 100 miles an hour. What's your true airspeed at 12,000 feet?
Showing the altitude of the pressure altitude.
Very good.
Yes, sir.
Altimeter, how do you turn it to pressure altitude?
29902.
29902. Then what do you read?
Read the pressure altitude.
Very good. You read the pressure altitude here, and it's showing you 12,800.
Okay.
Now what do you do?
After that, you check the temperature.
Okay. Temperature gauge, minus 41 degrees Celsius.
Okay. So you put the altitude on the temperature,
Okay, what pressure altitude here
on the temperature.
on this?
And then read the true airspeed in the window.
You go. 145.
So you got 100 miles an hour, but your altitude to 12,000 feet?
No,
12,800, your
No,
pressure
no, no.
altitude. You're reading your pressure altitude for your altimeter.
The first thing you do, altitude is 12,000. Corrected barometric pressure, altitude 12,000. Maintain altitude, climb, go on descent. Turn with altitude to a closed window, 29902. You don't set it to 12,000, set it to 29902. Just remember, 29902. Whatever is there, that's what the thing is done.
That's 12,800, and then
It could be 7,000.
right. So that altitude that 2992 gives you, but on the temperature,
You read the temperature after
read
that.
the temperature, and then what?
Then you match your pressure altitude to your temperature.
Pressure, altitude, good temperature, and then what?
Then you do it. And then
And same thing on your E6B computer.
you what?
If you don't have that airspeed indicator where you can read it from, you have an E6B.
Sometimes you may be
You have a
going
window
slower than
chart
the
here.
window.
You can put Celsius on top of pressure altitude on the window
And then
and zoom in. And over here somewhere, it depends on where it is,
on
you'll
the
have
circle,
100 knots, and over here it'll say indicate airspeed, and over here it says pure
Pure
airspeed, and you can read 145. Perfect.
but sometimes what happens, especially when one pressure, not your aspirated engine, but pressure from the tube, you'll be going at a speed that's slower than the window.
Right.
So you can't convert to true speed. Because the true speed window, the airspeed indicator is going slower. How do you do it? This is it.
I don't know about calculating calibration.
You never tell me to calibrate it. Calibrated speed is something that is good.
Time to go home! Home sweet home!
Right.